Happy Friday the 13th. It's not scary. You've had a great day. It's been a great day. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about what we found. This is not going to be a very typical academic talk because some of the things that we found, I have no idea what they are yet. Because we have just found them like 3 days ago. So, but I am gonna, talk about what we thought we were seeing, and we have new information, so that can be thrown out of the window probably. So this talk, for a reason, is called the 2025 Training Program on Plum Bayou Communities. What went right, what went wrong, what we learned, what we still don't know, and the 7,000 questions we still have to answer. Plus, pics of all you doing amazing things. So this is not a typical archaeology talk because I don't have a lot of answers for you, but that's also exciting because that means we have a lot to do. And you all have come to help me this season, and I hope you'll come next season because we have things to revisit and questions definitely still to answer. So I'm going to start with the boring bits and give you just a reminder of what we've been studying. You don't have to read the whole slide, but so we're studying Plum Bayou culture, which the type site is where most of you have been at, which is Plum Bayou Mounds. It's a terminal lake woodland culture that dates to AD 650 to 1050. These folks, culture, lived on the Mississippi alluvial plain, part of the Arkansas River Valley. At this time in the lake woodland, we're seeing incredible changes in settlement and subsistence and technology and social organization. The type site, which is Plum Bayou Mounds, is one of the largest mound centers at this time, and it's kind of unprecedented in its layout and size and scope. And it's pre-Mississippian. Most of you are probably familiar with Mississippian mound sites, and this predates that. So at this time, we don't have full-blown agriculture. We don't have these permanent village settlements, these nucleated populations. But this is the time period where we start to set the stage for what comes in the Mississippian period. So there's a lot of changes happening here. The sites that we mostly have are midden scatters, a few features like pits, hearths, maybe an occasional burial. We have amazing, exceptional sites like Plum Bayou Mounds, which I'll talk about a whole lot. We also have single households, multiple households with a single mound, and a lot of things. But at this time, we're seeing increases in political and religious centralization. And then, of course, we have the material types, the artifacts, which some of you have seen some of these in our excavations, if you've been finding them, or you've been seeing them in the lab, or you've been analyzing them in a class, foreshadowing. So these are the kind of artifacts that we've been seeing. So we've got this explosion of small arrow points at this time, little teeny tiny ones, as well as the other dart points and knives and other things that we've seen prior to this point. We have particular pottery types, like Coles Creek variety Keoghs. Some of you have probably seen these single incised line ceramics, as well as a type called officer punctate. I know we found a few of those. And some other types like red filmed pottery. Some of you have probably seen those. And we also have things that are coming from other places. They're being brought in to this place for use at places like Plum Bayou Mounds, like Plum Bayou communities, that show us that Plum Bayou people were not isolated. They were connected to the people around them and connecting with them. We have things like quartz crystal. I know a lot of you have found quartz crystal things lately because the number of jokes I've had about where the charging station is extensive. So I'm actually thinking about building one now because I just want to point instead of answer. But so we have a lot of quartz crystal, we have hematite, we have novaculite being brought in from like the Ouachita Mountains and other places. And then we have in the past seen things coming from as far flung as the Gulf, as well as perhaps the Great Lakes, like copper. So this area at this time can be seen it's a good spot for trade, interaction, community building, and so that is what we have been focused on researching is Plum Bayou communities and their interactions with one another as well as with other regions. So the scope of work that we had this summer, we were at 2 different sites, 2 sites the first week and then, thank God, 1 site the second week. We will never do this again. When we do the training program next year, we will be at 1 site, we will be at Plum Bayou Mounds, and we will test village sites on the off season with the help of volunteers. But this season we're at 2 sites, and I'll talk about each one of these in turn. But first, of course, a lot of work goes into even setting all of this up. And so, in addition to all of the work that my station has done and setting up this research and doing the background work and analyzing stuff, we had some survey staff come out early to help set the grid in, set the grid corners, bring all of their equipment because we need a lot of equipment. There were 100 people registered to come to this dig throughout the 2 weeks, and that's a lot. And we were digging a lot of holes, and we needed a lot of stuff. So survey staff came, we helped set up the units, we set them up at the mounds. We went to go set them up at the village site, and it went obviously super good, super duper good. We got 2 trucks stuck in a field, but thank God for our landowner, Leroy. He came out in his tractor and got both of us out. Thank God he was there. I do not know that we would have gotten out before without him. So things went really well the Thursday before all of you started to arrive. It went really well. But we got there. We got there. And we got rolling, especially with various vehicles around. But we got rolling out on the mounds as well as out at 3LN182, which is the village site that we've been looking at. We got into some sod busting, everybody's favorite activity. It's a good time. Some people here really like sod busting, and that is odd. But we appreciate you for your efforts. I wish we all had that enthusiasm. But once we got past the sod, of course, we started seeing some amazing artifacts, some interesting soils. And now, for what it's worth, I'm going to talk about the results. Or what I can tell you of the results without having looked at all of the data extensively, which will take at least a year, probably multiple years. So I'll tell you what I can about what we have and what we found at these 2 places. And you can ask questions. I might not know the answer to them, but we'll get there. So first, I want to talk about the village site, which is 3LN182. I had a small crew here, a crew that knows what they're doing, that I didn't have to worry about being there constantly with them. But, so this is a village site. I talked about it in the first talk. All of the artifacts that I showed you are actually from this site in the last slide. So some of the typical artifacts that we see from Plum Bayou communities. So we already knew that this was likely a late woodland occupation here related to the communities that built Plum Bayou Mounds. So we went out and we did geophysics. Work has been done here before, but not a lot has been found in terms of cultural deposits or features. And so one of the questions that we had is, could we find intact features? And the answer to that is yes and no. But one of the difficulties of working in this area of Arkansas is sometimes the deposits can be quite shallow. We're in a really wet, low area. And a lot of the village sites are on natural levees and natural high spots around on oxbow lakes and bayous, and a lot of those have been land leveled. They have been extensively plowed, land leveled, and made flat, so a lot of village sites have been destroyed. And that's just the way that it is. it's not a nefarious thing, it's just, land modification happens. So land history is a big reason as to why we don't have a lot of data on Plum Bayou village sites. So our main goal here at this site, as well as the site survey, which I'll talk a little bit about later, is to see if we could find a site that had intact deposits so we could learn more about Plum Bayou people in their daily lives. So that's the work that we were doing here. To set this up, we did geophysics. There was a bunch of different kinds of anomalies to test. We did a few test digs. The first two showed nothing, absolutely nothing, but some sweet, sweet plow scars, which I know some of you have seen. But the third one, when we went out in September of 2024, we did hit features, one of which was this charcoal ridge feature here, which I did get an AMS date from back in December, and it was about 8895 to 995, so it's right where it should be in terms of lake woodland. We had one confirmed post here, as well as some kind of reddened earth area here. This is this anomaly we were testing, by the way. So there was stuff here. There were also typical artifacts that we've seen for lake woodland, little tiny itty bitty arrow points, some incised pottery. It's actually highly degraded. So I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's try. So we sent a crew out there. So this site is pretty awesome in the sense that it had never been land leveled. It is still a natural high spot. And it had stopped being plowed in the 1980s. So it was like the best bang for our buck. Well, so I thought. So I sent a crew out there, folks. They brought a weed eater because it is now a hayfield. It's just mowed for hay, and the grass was quite tall. And I don't think anybody would have fun sod busting when the grass is up to your knees. It sounds actually quite awful. But they got going out there, started finding some interesting stuff, and they came across some of these really obnoxious plow scars. You can see they go in two directions. So they're north-south, but then they're also going diagonal. So they create a lot of noise in your unit. So you might not even see if you have features because of the plow scars. So I told them clear the noise, and we saw it looked super promising. Each one of these was a potential post. I'll talk about this one in a second, a larger feature or potential feature. It looked pretty promising. They were having a good time, partying it up over there by themselves. Found a little arrow point first day, super chill, super good time. They found what looked to be maybe a line of posts. They have this, you can see this, and this is that bigger feature I was talking about that's cross-cut by those plow scars. But this site wasn't ideal, it turns out. Not only was the site really, really hot to work in, there was no airflow, it was really, really hot. It was also, the field had to be dry to drive out there. Which is the first problem. But also, a lot of these, when they dug them, turned out to be tree roots. Most of them, I think. I think we had two confirmed posts, two extra confirmed posts. This big feature here may actually be a tree, because they leave similar signatures behind, and you have to dig them to see that that's what they are. So it wasn't panning out. We had just a few days left. We have a good landowner relationship there, so we can always go back if we need more data. But the logistics of being in two places at once, turns out it's impossible. I might have been a little ambitious there. So there is some more to do at Winfrey. We have other anomalies to test, and not thankfully, our units became swimming pools. After that huge storm that we had that one day that I think maybe destroyed camp for a few days. So it was just, we decided to do what we could. We got what profiles we could, and then we got out of there. And thank God, Leroy again used his tractor. And Clay also used Leroy's tractor. to backfill so that we would not have to hand backfill and get out of there. So while not an ideal candidate for a village, it might be a really ephemeral settlement, if anything, but we can revisit this and learn more. It is like woodland, but the cultural deposits are very thin. And so that might mean that this is not the ideal candidate. And was I a little like stoked that maybe I had found like the key? Yeah, but I didn't, because that's like impossible. So we have more work to do. We have more sites to test, and we can revisit this site as well. And I'll talk a little bit later about the work that we'll do on village sites in the coming years, because it will take years, I'm sure. So that's the village site. The majority of work that we've been doing is, of course, at Plum Bayou Mounds in two main areas. It was supposed to be three, but rain is awful. So we ended up just being in two main areas, the southern plaza and kind of adjacent spaces. So that is where those of you that have been in the field have been excavating, is these places. And so now I'm going to talk about those things. And just to run through this a little bit again, so these are the two main areas, this area in the plaza, kind of north and west of Mount G, and then this area in between Mounds C and G. And I'll go through each of these in turn. We did geophysics just like we did at the village site. And so all of the units that we set in, all of the work that we have done is based on those geophysical results. And so to remind you of what those are, so this little spot here, we're talking about the area between Mounds C and G first. This little dot here indicates a geophysical anomaly that is a magnetic anomaly that might indicate some burning. You can see this circle here showing that. Before you guys even got here, we did a small test and saw really, really dark organic rich soils, which to me, my theory was that this might represent like a larger borrow pit kind of feature. I was wrong. But, you know, at the base of this unit, this unit it's quite deep. This was at 65 centimeters. And of course I had my tallest people, Brittany and Emily, in it the entire time that we were out there. But, you know, at the base of it, there was an accumulation of burned pottery. This is from our spring break dig in March. Burned pottery, there's some burned bone in it, there's these little bits of burned clay, there's charcoal. There was a lot going on, so I saved this for the training program. One, because we ran out of time spring break, but two, because, you know, I wanted folks to see what was going on and investigate it further. So we opened up this area. I thought this area might have been a borrow pit, so we opened up a wide range of units. You've seen them on the landscape. Some of you have been in the pits themselves. And so this is where, a lot of you that have been in basic excavation, this is where you have been, is this area that had this feature. And I wanted to see if we could find the edge of a pit, of a huge giant pit. Turns out it's not a huge giant pit, but this site is incredibly complex in terms of its stratigraphy. Mound sites, the plaza spaces and the areas around the mounds have been heavily modified, not just by the people that built them, but also by agriculture and time. So what's happening here, I think, in the area overall is those landscape modifications through time, historically and prehistorically. But nonetheless, it looked like everybody was having a good time. I don't know if you actually were, but you know, we found some cool stuff. People started finding some incised pottery. We've got one with two lines here, some points, and we started to see the deposits show up. These are these intense dark plow scars, which the other area is very, very different. Very, very different. So we started seeing these dark soils, seeing some pottery. Some of you have been pedestaling some pottery and getting practice with that, and seeing some of these larger sherds and getting practice mapping. We also, as we got deeper, saw some weird stuff that I have had to ask colleagues what it is. It looks like kind of like a giraffe. honestly. But so this is actually in these layers. It's mud cracks that have then been kind of filled in with different soils through time. A colleague of mine at Spiro has seen these underneath houses at Spiro, and so he was like, "That's what that is." Okay, next question, because he has more experience with mud cracks apparently. But this, indicates that these surfaces have been exposed at different times to me. And that's quite interesting. So whoever mapped this unit, thank you. Because it's a pretty cool pattern and an interesting find in itself, because it's not just the artifacts, it's everything else combined. So it's pretty cool stuff. And remember this little feature I told you about, this accumulation of burned pottery and stuff that Brittany and Emily have been just like trying to get to? We got to it this morning. It took a long time. They dug out an entire other half of the unit. We thought we had a bigger portion of a pit, which I think we do. We caught the edge of it in this wall over here. And in true fashion, when you encounter something like this and want to do something like residue analysis, which Emily talked about this week, you sit at Charlotte's Eats and Sweets with your colleagues and write on a napkin to figure out how best to capture the feature before you leave the field. So this is a window that Emily cut today that we were hoping would be clear of pottery so that she could chunk out the actual intact feature that we encountered spring break. But as you can see, there's more pottery in it, which is not bad. It just makes things hard. So she spent the afternoon kind of clearing this out. We've got float samples from this. She collected these sherds for some residue analysis, and then essentially, so this is where that accumulation of pottery is. She's kind of sliced out the weirdest slice of cake ever, and we've put it in tin foil, and it's in the freezer for residue analysis. So sometimes archaeology takes a long time, but it is a deep pit. It extends past that 65 centimeter below datum mark. It is deep. I think we might have been getting to the base of it, but for now, we're going to profile it and maybe come back to it next year, because these are large sherds. They're quite big, and they could be from the same vessels, which would be unique to this site, and finding something like that. And then being able to date them with some of the charcoal that's there for Emily to do her residue analysis. It's a unique opportunity for a lot of reasons. So we might end up coming back to this, but it took a lot of time to get there, because their unit was quite complex, as this area is complex. So this is them collecting those samples today, very carefully wrapping them in tin foil, and then, we shove them in the freezer for later. Don't worry, I told the park staff not to throw them away when they clear the freezer. So there's more to come on that. But it is a unique opportunity. It looks to me like it is like a feasting pit of some kind where they're throwing trash. But it is a unique find that we've not seen something like that here. So exciting. So now I want to talk about the plaza area, which, let me tell you what, this area has tested me in ways I don't understand, because my interpretation and theories change daily, sometimes hourly, based on each trowel and shovel scrape. So I still don't know the full story, but we will get there eventually. It will just take time, which is, archaeology takes time, and that's okay. So this is the area, this little tiny dot in the middle of the plaza, in front of well, to the west of Mound G. It's a slightly higher elevation, about 10 centimeters. You probably wouldn't notice it. If you were walking over there today, you'd probably notice it because it was really wet walking up to it, and then it was dry. Crazy. We did radiometry here as well. This is a strong magnetic signature, about 3 meters in diameter. And this is what it looks like when we did that work in 2024. It's quite big, and it's quite a strong anomaly. Concerningly for me, it said the best expression could be below 1 meter depth. That also might be foreshadowing for some of you who come next year. But we did, just like the other area in spring break, a little small test dig. And, you know, it doesn't look anything like the other area, which is fine. It happens. But we did have something of a pre-contact feature show up. There's a little bit of bone here. And we had this curious burned clay line show up. And I was like, well, there is something here. Leave it for the training program. Leave it for everybody else. So that was a spring break dig. I had interns process that data. And we found some interesting artifacts, some red film and sized pottery. And looking at some of the burned clay we got from that unit, it had impressions, which is cool. It's very cool. I was hesitant to call it daub, but that's what daub is. It's impressed fired clay. It's impressed clay. So I was like, well, another area we need to open up. So we opened up. We didn't open this unit here, but we opened up every single other one. So we have 8 units in this area. It's a big, big area. And, you know, we saw it busted. Everybody was having a good time. Even Dr. Zabecki got in the mix because there was animal bone, and, you know, she likes to investigate animal bone and pick around it and stuff. And, you know, things started fine. It was interesting. We were finding points. We were finding interesting pottery. And then it got more and more confusing. And you probably, if you were over there, saw a bunch of us going, what? What is that? And why is it there? And what does it mean? Which is, you know, a lot of archaeology too. So, in the center unit, if you'll recall, where the hottest spot, so to say, of this anomaly is, we found that burned clay line. And we opened up the other half of that unit. We started seeing, oh my God, that is a flashlight. Bigger chunks of fired clay, as well as, you know, we've got a bunch of charcoal. There's some fired clay mixed in here. Some really, really burned sherds. And so we were finding more daub. And who knows what? Does anybody not know what daub is? I guess I should describe what it is. So daub can be from many different reasons, but from what we're seeing, I think it's from the building of a structure. So the way that Native Americans built structures, they used a process called wattle and daub. So they would build the structure, they would have posts, support posts, and then in between those, they would weave river cane to make the walls, to make the bones, so to speak, of the walls. And then they would line that with clay. And then, once you're done using that structure or building or whatever, if you burn it, the clay is left behind, the river cane and the posts burn away, and you're left with this impressed fired clay that has that kind of weave structure and the posts impressed in the clay. So the daub itself, the fired clay, is actually the remnants, or can be the remnants of a structure, of a demolished structure. And so we were finding what looked like daub. You could see the big chunks in the unit here, and we kept finding more and more and more and bigger pieces. And it's all pretty burned, and they're pretty interesting. You can see the cane lines here in the daub itself. This is actually a very interesting piece. Dr. Liz Horton, who's here, told me that this is what it is. It's actually where the river cane meets a support post and weaves together. And you can kind of see that zigzaggy line here. So we have a couple pieces of that. So more and more daub, that indicates that there's a structure somewhere, but is it here, right where we're at? Maybe. And then, digging a little deeper, also, this is like, we don't have daub at Plum Bayou sites. We have never really found daub at Plum Bayou sites. So this is incredibly significant of a find. It's incredibly significant. Even more so because of what else we found with the daub that we have also never seen. That burned clay line that showed up in that unit went like straight down, which is crazy. I've never seen it before. I don't know that I've read it before. And then today, of course, always today, it's the last day, we found another, it's kind of hard to see in this photo because it's my cell phone photo, but we have a line going this way as well, which means there's a corner here. I've never seen a square pit, so I don't know if this is a pit, but it might be the remains of a small structure. This is what the little wall looks like in profile. You can see it goes straight down. It's not well consolidated, but it is there. I don't know how far it goes, but it is there. And we even have something that might be a little post hole in the corner. Don't know that yet. It's not super well formed, but it is a soil variation. And then to complicate things, in the unit to the south, what is that? There's another corner. We don't know if they line up, but there's something incredibly complex happening here that we have never seen before in the middle of the plaza. And so I present to you a series of small walls that I can't interpret very well for you. I really can't. And it just means we have to come back and do more work. But I don't have a satisfying answer, just several theories. It could be from a small structure. It's curious because all of the daub we're finding is inside of this little square, even just inside this unit. There's not a lot in here. And outside, there's like no daub. So it's almost like something collapsed in, which is crazy. And we did some soil cores. Some of you probably saw me trying to like muscle through some stuff in that unit. And so doing the soil cores in this unit with this wall, you can see there's a tiny probe hole here. Those deposits could potentially go down at least 1.3 meters deep, which is very deep. So this little, whatever this is, super technical, might actually have been built on top of a pit, and there might be a pit underneath this. And I say that because this morning I did a soil probe here on this side, and it doesn't look the same at all. I hit subsoil at around 80 centimeters, which is pretty typical here. So this little side is different than that. So I think there's a pit underneath this, but not underneath this. So it's incredibly complex. I don't know what it is, but it means we have to go back here. And so the work that people did today is to cut that down, and we actually took a little wall baby sample, to subject to some different kinds of analyses. This entire area, all the units around it had some also interesting things happening as well. Lots of animal bone, highly degraded animal bone. Some of you have just seen it fall apart before your eyes. We've had some bone tools come out, but interestingly, there looks like no daub. No real indications of like strong features, nothing like that. It's a really interesting area, but it maps out almost exactly, crazily, with the geophysics, which is very exciting. So This whole area has been painstakingly, as well as the other, mapped out because we've never seen anything like this before, which is why I can't really give you a super good answer as to what it is. But it will be significant for our interpretation of lake woodland communities in the area. So it's exciting. Dr. Emily Beam has done all of the photogrammetry on the things. So it's been documented many times over, not just with paper maps, but with photographs and with photogrammetry and with cell phone pics. And I think Gary was going around with his 3D LiDAR on his phone. So we've got a lot of documentation of this area, as well as the others, which, by the way, if you have pictures, send them to me for the record. In both areas, in all areas, please send them to me. But I don't have a satisfying answer for you yet about what these things mean. But that's just kind of the way that archaeology goes. We had questions going in. We sort of answered some of them. Sort of. Some of our questions, was that village site going to be a good candidate to, give us some more data about village life? The answer is no. Not yet, anyway. With more work, maybe. Here, we were looking to illuminate some more about the gathering spaces where everyone would be gathering, like in the plaza. And I think while we don't have satisfying answers yet, we're on the way to answering that question. And we're on the way to better understanding Plum Bayou people's use of this site and adding more data to get at, what's going on here. But we won't answer that probably in my career. But we're getting towards what we need to do. So next year we'll be back in these places, and probably another one, to map out these plaza spaces. This is where everybody would be. This is where everyone's gathering. This is where people are connecting with one another, where the communities are, and where all this stuff is happening. And we don't have we're getting a better understanding of plazas, but we need more satisfying answers as to what was happening there, other than people gathered here. That's so boring.
Maybe that was the
Because
root cellar.
There what?
Maybe that was the root cellar.
Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that this could go, which is why I don't have a satisfying answer to you. But I know at least several things about the last 2 weeks. We have had so much fun. I hope you've had fun. I've had a great time. And there's been super fun things going on. We had, of course, the Stevening. 3 Steves, 1 area, too many Steves. Too many Steves. I became Steve at one point. We were all Steve. We were all Steve. We had co-worker bonding. People coming to do field work, to come together and learn more about archaeology and to get better at their jobs, and then also, just to have a good time and meet all of you and connect with one another and build community. It's crazy to study a site that is all about building communities and creating communities while also simultaneously creating community with one another. So that's an exceptional opportunity. We also had fun, friendship, and clean scraping. I don't know if many of you know this, but a couple days ago, there were many different generations of station archaeologists present at this one site. Dr. Liz Horton, who is my predecessor, has been here all week. Dr. John House, who is the former station archaeologist at UAPB, was also there a couple days ago. We've had many visitors that have worked at stations. We have people that keep coming back that have worked at stations and now work other places. We have archaeologists from all around. We have station archaeologists. We have station assistants. We have people from CRM firms. We have people that have never touched a shovel in their life. It's so incredible, and I hope you all take away those relationships and the love of clean scraping. even though I know most of you probably hate it. But then we have, of course, not just community building in the field, but we have everything happening in the lab. And the lab is where everything else is going to happen. These 2 weeks of fieldwork will fill over a year in the lab. Over a year in the lab. And so they've just started this work under the brilliant direction of Katie Gregory and Courtney Lee, washing things, sorting things, getting things boxed up so that we can begin to do the analysis that needs to be done to understand what was happening. So they're taking all of the data that we collected, all the paperwork, all the artifacts, all of the samples, and we will work on them for the next probably several years to try and give you a satisfying answer as to what we've been finding. We even have a new lab member, Trash Panda. He will be a supervisor next year, don't worry. He will man the stapler. Very important. So a lot of work, but a lot of fun. And that's archaeology. My partner Josh once told me, he was like, your relationships with the people you work with is like, it's crazy. You don't see it anywhere else. Because we spend the time in the field bonding, and then after the field bonding we come together like this and gather, and we get to know one another, and we build relationships like no other field and discipline can do. So that's very, very, very good. And because we were at a state park, we have had some incredibly unique opportunities to connect with members of the public as well. So we had, I only have a picture of Michelle, but we had Michelle and Mel giving tours and interacting with the public. Some of you probably got to interact with the public yourself as they came in and they were like, what are you doing? Because that happens a lot. But we had these temporary trails set up so that we didn't get like surrounded by people. But they got to see what we're doing and ask questions as things were coming out of the ground. They got to see things pulled out of the ground, which if I was a kid or a non-archaeologist and I saw that, I would be like, that is cool. That is wild. So an incredibly unique opportunity. We had a lot of tours come around so we kind of shifted the public day to Sunday. We had, I think, over 100 people visit the park to come see us do what we do. So that's incredible. We also had random film crews show up, which is fun. We had promotional videos of state parks. Those of you that were interviewed, thank you for doing that. They showed up announced and also unannounced, so that's always fun. So some of you will probably see yourselves in photos at random times on the internet. I'm so sorry, but it's just what happens. We also have a lot of other things. This is like an incredible endeavor to put on, and so we've had a lot going on. We had a site stewardship workshop where people learned to become site stewards and help us monitor sites and check in on them and report activity happening at those sites so that we can better do our job. And we also had classes. I mentioned basic excavation already, which was taught by Steve Jacober, who's somewhere. He way in the back. Both weeks, so thank you for that, Steve. We also had week 1 a ceramics seminar, which worked on collections from the park that had been excavated as part of the last training program that was here in 2010 on Mount P. So it was held the first week, taught by Mary Beth Trubitt, and so they analyzed ceramic sherds from Mount P that were excavated in 2010. So we finally are going to get data. Heck yeah! And that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people in my lab. I don't know that I've ever seen that many people in my lab. So in 2010, at Mount P, they excavated basically a trench of 6 2x2 meter units, which are the same size we've been excavating this summer. There was some post-contact fill more towards this area here, and then as you go up the mound, there are features and a lot of ceramics. I believe they analyzed about 1,500 sherds from these 6 test units, which is a lot. 1,500 plain body sherds, a sample of decorated rims, bases, and perforated discs. I don't think we had a bunch of perforated discs pop out, but they're ceramic discs that have a hole in the middle, and some of them are decorated. They might be like spindle whorls for making fabrics and twines and things. But thank you to those of you that did all of that work for me. No, I'm kidding. But we're finally getting data from other training programs as well, and people are learning to do my favorite thing, ceramic analysis. I wish I could have taught you, but you learned from someone better than me, right? And turns out I can't do everything. We also had site survey, both weeks, taught by Bob Scott, who's hiding in the back as well, behind Tina. But site survey recorded 3 new sites, 3 new late woodland sites. Am I wrong about that?
2.
2 of them are late woodland sites, and then one is a historic site.
One is historic, yeah.
Yeah. They revisited one of the sites that Nassini, who documented a lot of village sites, recorded and actually found some more stuff. So they have recorded some more sites that we could potentially go and excavate and learn more about Plum Bayou village life, which is important. That was one of the big goals of this, is to try to find good candidates for that. So now we have places to go, because those folks in that seminar not only did survey work and mapped things out, but they also filled out site forms and processed the artifacts. So those sites are documented, and we can go back there and do the similar techniques that we did at the village site that we excavated here. And we also had 2 other classes. I have no photos. I'm so sorry. I was watching though. I was like peeping in the lab at you guys. But we had archaeochemistry taught by Glenn Akers this week. Which, are you still holding classes tomorrow?
Oh yeah, they have homework due tomorrow.
So do your homework. Do your homework. And then we had basic lab both weeks taught by Lily and Michelle. And you guys have been working on various collections from all over and doing whole vessel analysis as well. I heard you had to destroy ceramic vessels that you made with Lily and reconstruct them, which is diabolical. So, so we had a lot going on. So, what does it mean? We still have stuff to do. Like a lot. We still have a lot of work to do. We have work in the lab, which if you live locally, come work with me in the lab, come help me process the data. And if you don't live locally, you'll just have to come back and help me excavate. If not during the summer, then when we go in the off season to excavate village sites, you'll have to come back and help me do this. Because now you know how, and I know you know how. So, I'm coming for you. No, that's so threatening. So, I want to end and just say, so this is my first training program. It is maybe the biggest endeavor I've ever organized, and I did not do it alone. And so I thank all of you that gave your time and energy, not just during this 2 weeks, but in helping set this up and giving me feedback and guidance in teaching classes and prepping materials and printing stuff, in running the lab and making sure everything's properly documented, and all the volunteers too, in listening and learning and being kind to one another and being excited about what you're finding. It's really been a pleasure and an honor to run one of these, and so I hope you come back next year, or you tell people about your experience and what you've done here, and that you come away with a love of archaeology. But I want to say definitely thank you to all of my supervisors, to all of the people who came to give talks, Dr. Barker, as well as Dr. Bartz, as well as myself, no, I'm kidding. To all the supervisors and all the volunteers, and especially Jillian. Done so much to make this run. There was no way I would have been able to do this if she could not done the amount of work that she did, especially during the last 2 weeks, but in helping set all this up. They're not here, but you know, when you see the park staff tomorrow, tell them thank you, because they also have given such time and energy in making this work and facilitating this. They're already making notes of things they want to change. So they told me that after I left. And I was like, that's kind of rude, but okay. It's not even over yet. But say thank you to them for taking the time. They were showing up to open the park at 7 a.m. The park does not normally open at 7. They were staying late. They opened on weekends that they weren't supposed to open on. They were giving multiple tours for free, by the way. Normally they charge for some of those tours, especially the tram tours. So thank them for their time and energy in supporting us in what we do and making sure it works, because it's literally a team effort, and we cannot do it without any of you or without all of the staff. So that's all I have for you. Thank you.